Welcome everyone, wherever in the world you're from. This is the latest edition of our Atlassian Australia New Zealand community. Hello, Melody. There we go as well. We're coming to you from Mianjin, so otherwise known as Brisbane, the land of the Yagara and Turrbal people. Love to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. And I always feel what a lovely and appropriate way for us to spend our time with that in mind, talking about things we can learn from each other and the joys of storytelling. I'm joined here by the fabulous Jonathan White. I met Jonathan at Agile Australia, I feel like 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think it would have been about that. Yep.
And was thrilled to sort of hear about all the fun and games that he was having with Tracy and the gang. It sounds like Aesop. So over to you, Jonathan. Like for anyone that doesn't know, maybe some of our international visitors, who are these people that you work for, and like why we asked you here to share your stories?
So I work for a company called Aesop. Some people might pronounce it Aesop, but I quickly got onto the correct pronunciation of Aesop. It focuses on high quality skin, hair, and body care, as well as does a range of amazing fragrances too. It started off in Armidale in Melbourne, and was headquartered in Melbourne for a long time. But it's now expanded globally, and I think there's over 450 stores across the globe. So once you know to look out for their unique stores, you'll see them popping up in different places around the world.
I was like the fables, kind of like next thing that logically comes to mind, right? So
Yeah,
there's a storytelling association we go through.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and tell us a bit about your role, Jonathan. We've had like 5 coffee iterations of this chat that have led to us doing this. But
Yeah,
what do you do with the team? So like Tracy can jump in if she disagrees at any point in the chat
like
as well.
he does not do that at all. That'd be some good feedback. So I'm currently working as a delivery lead in the global technology team. I've worked across a number of the different domains. So I think there was about a year there where I was helping out predominantly the digital team. And more recently, I'm working in sort of a portfolio management type of role, where I'll kind of work across a number of the different domains and teams to help everyone with a little bit about how we deliver as a group, how we make sure that we're still aligned in what we're doing, and making sure that people are still collaborating and coordinating their work well. A lot of buzzwords already thrown in there for you.
Yeah, feel free to de-jargon if you hear Jonathan or me throw in
We'll put a
any
hand up and go,
three-letter
what do
acronyms.
you really mean?
Yeah, very good. And like, what kind of teams were they making? How do they arrange themselves?
We've got a Tracy on the line, so she's working in the fin and ops space. So all the systems and platforms that kind of run the engine of the business, enhanced, maintained, supported by Tracy and her team. I've got a retail team because there's I think 450 odd stores, and there's running on a particular point of sale platform. It's a really complex one. It has to take into account all the different currencies, all the different tax rates. I think even in like US states alone, there'd be about 100 tax rates they need to take in for the transactions. There's and then there's a number of other teams that help glue things together too.
Yeah. But you've got the full stack, haven't you, of things? And Aesop's a brand that has a whole lot of positive associations with it. I remember Jonathan kindly gave me some Aesop soap after I'd met him, and it now only comes out on nice occasions when my wife takes it and puts it by the sink, and the rest of the time we only have the crappy kind of like soap from other people. But like there's a lot of love attached to that brand that I imagine must feel like it's mimicked and echoed in the teams themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the people there really love the brand, really love the products, and really love what it's about. I suppose that what is one of the things that has definitely stood out for me, and is obviously some of the stuff I'd love to talk with the group here about, is some of the strong values that the organization has, some of the strong culture and principles it maintains, and then to see actually how that translates through into these really incredible products and services and experiences.
Very good. And like, what are those values? Give us a rundown. Can you memorize them all? Is the test of any organization's values, right?
So the core values, and this is one which stood out to me, was quite refreshing when I first heard it, was people, planet, and profit. And the reason why that was refreshing to me is because a lot of organizations I find they'll have their kind of values and they might not necessarily talk about the commercial element or the profit element of it, but at the end of the day, that is driving a lot of what organizations do, and it's so important for that viability and feasibility and continuing to be able to offer products and services to your customers. And so, one of the things that stood out to me is Aesop has been very strong at sticking to its values and principles.
Mm.
And one way to be able to do that is to be very clear up front with what they are and say clearly, profit is a key one. And of course, the people is a key one, which they really focus on and planet as well. So it's a B Corp, and there's a big focus on volunteering, and there's a lot of charitable contributions the company makes.
Yeah. And just to reinforce for those that join us a bit late, do you put your questions in the chat or stick up your virtual hand? I think I've enabled it if you want to jump in and ask Jonathan anything point, or ask each other. We can ask Tracy as we go through.
We'll get a running chat going, people having a conversation alongside what we're talking about.
I feel like Zoom doesn't let you share memes, unfortunately, but we like a good meme to share a lot of things. And,
yeah, nice.
Yeah. And as you kind of like build that culture together with the teams, like what have you learned from like any big mistakes that or the learnings that you can kind of like share from things that didn't go so well and that people could like avoid making the same mistakes from?
I think that one of the challenges when I first started in the space, there was a bit of siloing within functions and teams. And I think, and this kind of ties up to that bit that I was talking to that I really wanted to weave in, which is one of the kind of not an explicit value, but one of their core values of the company is around hospitality. You'll definitely experience it if you go into their stores. You'll hopefully feel very welcomed and kind of catered for and taken care of. But that also is fundamental within the head office and the office spaces as well. And when we started, one of the things that kind of really helps with this siloing piece is the fact that, we'll have team lunches. I think that I'm not sure if now's the right time to talk about one of the...
Let's talk about the food.
Let's talk about the food.
The food is important.
So I might see Tracy smiling about this one, but one of the things that people find more interesting when I talk to them about some of the differences that working with Aesop has compared to other places is they have a few quite strong different cultural principles, we'll say. They've got a bit of a guide around the type of things you wear in the office. There is rules and strong guidelines around not bringing, if you bring a coffee cup, takeaway coffee cup or a Coca-Cola can, you immediately decant it into the branded cups and mugs. There's no eating lunch at desks. You can have a small snack as long as it fits in a particular type of cup. But when you first hear this, you think I'm not sure I like that. I'm not sure about that. But what it results in is, I'd probably say over the last however many years, the dining area, the kitchen area is probably the most lively space at an organization I've been for a while, because everyone comes in there. You are not eating from the Tupperware containers as well. Everything kind of gets decanted into the nice plates and bowls. But yeah, and I'm sure Tracy can attest to this as well, that you get there and at lunchtime it's full of people. Everyone's sitting down. And so that's, I think, one of the elements or a manifestation of this value around hospitality. And this does weave into helping the teams work better together. And the reason this is because when you're working, you're perhaps more likely to be focused in silos, but come lunchtime, tools down, everyone gets up and comes together. And I think that really helps. And I suppose me personally, I lent into that value as a way to try and help bring some of these more siloed teams together. After a couple of go lives, I still remember it was 6 p.m. and I was in the kitchen area. It's quite a well-equipped kitchen, and I was mixing up chocolate chip cookie dough. And
Vital for every delivery manager to
there's no one in the office. And I remember one of the founders, Suzanne, came in and she was on the phone and she looked at me. She's like, "What on earth are you doing?" But I, yeah, made cookies for the team, and I of course made sure I baked them the next morning, so then the smell permeated throughout the office. So if we're looking for actionable tips with this webinar, get cookie dough and bake it up if you can, or maybe if you've just got a microwave, zap it in the microwave in the morning. It'll bring people coming. People from different teams as well. I was breaking down silos across the
members of the
business.
public, maybe
Yeah,
even. Yeah.
people knocking on the doors. So I suppose it wasn't necessarily uh, a disaster. Maybe the disaster was they didn't make enough. There was some sad people when they realized it wasn't all for them. Um, but yeah, I think that's considering an element of hospitality and how you can really work on breaking down some of those silos.
Yeah. One of my favorite references was always Steve Jobs' designs of the Pixar campus. And I say design, I'm sure he delegated the actual design work, but the infamous one about him putting the toilets all in the middle in one space to
Right.
like force
Yeah.
the serendipitous meeting of people with the teams. And like I always wondered, and I haven't asked anyone who'd know, but when you've got a strong physical based culture like that, how did that work through the transition to like fully remote working at one point and now hybrid as we are now? Like I assume at some point that broke apart a little bit and you had to rebuild it again.
It's a good question. Unfortunately, I joined after
Okay.
COVID. And before COVID, there was actually across maybe two or three different offices.
Yeah.
But there was, yeah, still people walking around in those. I think, how does it, um, so what do you mean? So how is this kind of working in this hybrid
Yeah,
world?
I guess so. And we've got some questions in the chat we can jump into as well. So let's
Who loads the dishwasher?
yeah. We're interested. This is actually a really good one, isn't it? So
I definitely got something on that, but I'll answer your
yeah,
question first, and then we'll come to the dishwasher question.
yeah.
Um, so I think that, and I guess this is me personally, and I think a lot of companies are the same. Given hybrid working and some people coming to the office at different times, I think it's now more important than ever
Mm.
to have dedicated and useful and workable ways for people to come together and connect.
Mm.
Um, and I'm a big believer of kitchen-based, hospitality-based, and I guess now is when I can say my hot take, which is I think that work lunches and catered lunches are probably the most underrated ROI going around. Great way to bring people together, get them to talking about things, bring this cross-functional people together as well. And I'm sure that everyone else has seen this as well, but a lot of us are very food driven, where people perhaps wouldn't come into the office on certain days if they know there's going to be a free breakfast or a free lunch. You bet your ass I'll be there. And I'll be there too.
Very good. Well, let's treat every question in the chat like it's a serious one, whether it was meant that way or not, and then we can use that as the breaking point of things. So, who loads and unloads the dishwashers? I think is interesting, derived from me. Yeah, let's talk about loading and unloading the dishwashers. I'm always interested. There's the shopping trolley principle or something around who does the caring for an environment,
What's the
right?
shopping trolley principle?
It's whether you can tell if someone's an evil human being or not by whether they put the trolley back in the car park or they leave it to sort of go. It's a bit like broken windows, right? I see Christina nodding around things, and it's
Yeah.
like, do you have those people that curate and build the environment, or do you have people who just leave things around? And I feel like that's related to that sort of point of like who does the admin around things, right? Yeah.
Yeah, right. How many
Yeah.
trolleys do you put back, do you reckon?
I'm like a plus. My
You
wife.
go around collecting
I'm a
around them.
hopeless rule adherence person, much to my wife's constant teasing. Like I'm like, if I see one, I'll kind of curate on the way. Yeah.
Yeah, great. I suppose when it comes to dishwashers, there's actually I do have an interesting thought about this. So uh, years earlier, I used to work for a company, Movember, which is a little bit different from Aesop, but another great Melbourne startup brand. The whole thing is growing mustaches for men's health. And I still remember it stood out vividly as well. They had an interesting hospitality kind of culture there as well. And I could see one of the board members would routinely be the one to stack and unstack the dishwasher. And he said, you've always got to make time for that. Everyone's got to kind of chip in. I think I intentionally try to make time to stack and unstack the dishwasher. I think for me, one, it helps me, it'll only take a few minutes, but it gives me a kind of bit of a meditative break
Mm.
where I'm doing something relatively simple. Another thing that it does really well, and I'll come back to this cross-functional piece, is if I'm just there taking, unstacking the dishwasher, someone else will come along and help. And numerous times it's been someone who I haven't met before, someone from a different team. Really quick way to just have a chat. Um, and I think, like, I suppose that the final part into that is just this idea of everyone kind of mucking in and contributing to
Mm.
that bit. It's kind of your house at the end of the day, and it's everyone's house, and so it's you got to look after it
Yeah.
there. But there's, and again, I'll refer back to Trace to be able to attest to this. By Aesop being strong in its values and cultural principles, there of course has to be times where they uh, encourage people to come back to those principles when they perhaps haven't been as strong on them.
Discipline.
And we
Time for
get
discipline, Jonathan.
we get the odd incredible email from the office manager Ange, and it definitely emails which I think when you first see them it feels a bit off, but now it's almost like something which you look forward to and you love to read them, and it's like, yeah, all right, we'll stop putting these cups in the sink, or stop doing this. Or she'll come up and ask you about, a particular item of clothing or something that you're wearing.
Yeah, I am. I love that there's consistency always in like everyone's office has a sign that says like there's no dishwasher fairy or something, right? There's like there's some odd consistency across all organizations
Mm,
around things there as
mm,
well.
mm,
Um, Cool. Well, loving the chat on the side
mm.
with tips around things as well. The only note I'll add to Jonathan's bakery is so one of my colleagues, Tim Evans, in the UK. So there used to be an organization called Accenture Digital, and because
Mhm.
we are contrary people, we founded Accenture Analog, which was all about making physical things
Oh, I
in the
love
wake of
that.
stuff. But one of my favorite things to sort of riff off some of the points I see in the chats is like Tim would make technical architecture cakes where he would build the technical architecture components in cake form. And I
That's
really loved it. It
incredible.
was incredible. And I really love it for its ability to bring together disparate skills around something they would find difficult to access. And
Ah,
I always remember he did the full ITV for any I hope people have been to the UK as one of the public service broadcasters. And he built the full-on end-to-end video architecture of this large broadcaster
that's
in
incredible.
cake. And what it meant was when the team were coming together, like I can imagine some people in this call going through, they could go, look, the encoder, and they'd pick up the chocolate coconut cake or something and develop a sense of attachment and discussion around it in a way that they wouldn't have been able to access elsewhere. So,
That's
yeah.
good. I can see a few of you there taking notes, like make cake architecture.
That's an official Atlassian community recommendation is to make your technical section cake. Awesome. So, with our time that we've got, like, to gather insights
Mm,
from Jonathan, I'm interested, like, around those of us coming from like a delivery background, trying to sort of help teams do things. Like,
mm,
what practices and methods would you say beyond this community building do you find yourself coming back to? And I guess let's imagine you're spinning up a new team. What
mm.
would you bring in your toolkit to help them make things awesome?
Um, oh, it's a good question. How do you build it up from the scratch? As you mentioned, the first thing that I would probably lean on is making sure that the team members that are all working together, you're building those relationships. I think that's critical. Um, I think tooling definitely helps, and it can be a subtle nod to Atlassian. A lot of the teams I've worked with and over the years have used the tooling there. Definitely Jira and Confluence are really helpful. I think what I see them being really valuable at is by being able to structure up and view the work and the plan and getting it can really help align people, bring people onto the same page that then allows and I suppose enables that next level thinking where you kind of are able to start moving it around and say, okay, well, this is our strategy. Will this work? Can we do this there? What are the dependencies? And so I suppose the tooling can be really helpful. It can do a lot of stuff in and of itself, but one of the real keys I see in the tooling is actually enabling those kind of next level conversations. So yeah, of course you'd get your tooling down, you'd try to get your ceremonies and ways of working down as well. But Um, of course, as I've said before, I think that the structure and the process and the tooling, I personally see that as the simpler part, and I see that as those as the foundational kind of scaffolding is the word I keep coming back to. And that really helps and enables the kind of the other part, which is around how do you help the different functions and different skill sets and people to work together, collaborate, and coordinate their work.
Yeah, yeah. I see the question for Christina, which we'll come to in a second. Just to reflect on what you've just said, Jonathan, like my feeling is always like you can't just shove in tooling and it fix other things, but
Mm,
you think about it as a kind of virtuous circle of investing in people, then
mm,
processes, then tooling.
mm,
You do need to complete the full circle enough to kind of keep things going.
mm,
Otherwise, you can have people who are awesome working together, get your processes in, but then they can't collaborate because you
mm,
give them Excel spreadsheets or
mm,
something
mm,
and not something that's actually kind of pleasant or usable around
mm,
things. And no, you keep going around, right? You've got to keep going and
mm,
go like, what do you need now? How can we keep iterating our meetings? How can we
mm.
keep doing things there?
I guess an analogy that comes to mind is you get an amazing team, and you give them a butter knife or a chainsaw.
Yes.
Like they can be really, really good, but there's only so much that they could do. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Very good. So Christina's asked, how are you including remote or divergent into this food and person-driven culture? Yeah, it's a really good challenge, right? So the people with the skills and the capabilities that you need to be part of the team
yep,
might exclude them for things, right?
yeah. Oh, I really want to hand it off to Tracy, but I'm not sure if she's up for that.
Tracy, are you willing to be brought into the discussion? This is like a
I
volunteer.
I can. I feel like it's very much targeted to me. So,
Do
hi
you not like
everyone.
Jonathan's cooking?
No, no, I
Is that
love
the reason he's
Jonathan. No, 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 I love Jonathan. Love working with him. I think it's more just the fact that I work remotely. So, previously was Melbourne based and moved up to the Gold Coast a number of years ago. So, definitely leaning into the challenges of working in a culture based organization that's very much focused around connection and collaboration and being, one of a very small handful that are outside of that network. We're a global business, so we do work remotely, and that makes sense. But for an organization that's very focused on people and coming together as connections, particularly over food or wine, it's harder for the people that are remote. You do feel a little bit more isolated, and I can lean into that and say there are days where you go, oh, I really wish I was close by, I could come in. But there's always a way that you can lean in and still connect with the team. You can check in with them later. How was that event? What was the food like? What did you have? You can still have those engaging conversations, though you do miss out on the deliciousness of some of the some of the foods that they have.
I think. Thanks, Tracy. I think it's super interesting and helpful getting your take on it as well, because you've experienced both worlds and you're very much in that remote space. I think it comes to mind. There's been a couple of times I think where Tracy and I are on the same call and maybe having a more challenging workshop, and I'll do a video call straight after. I'll do that because I think one of the challenges and things that you lose in fully remote work or hybrid working is those corridor conversations, which I think are key. You can, you talk about kind of the meat and veg, but then it's the parts afterwards and beforehand, which can be really helpful in working through some of the nuance. And so there's been once or twice where Tracy and I will be tapping away on the keyboard to each other, and I'll be like, let's just jump on a call. And so I guess to answer that question, um, I do personally, and like Tracy said, it's a very relationship based organization and the way that it functions. I will lean on video calls where I can, because over text it's hard to convey as much nuance as you can, and then even voice call, it's a little bit better, but still challenging. But I just find the video call is probably the best that you can get without being there in person. So leaning on that. And I suppose another small one, which Tracy and I have organically started doing, is because have an arrangement where I'll come up here for 2 weeks out of every 4. We've started having Aesop Gold Coast meetups where we'll go for a lunch once
Aesop
a
on the
month.
beach.
Aesop on the beach. We make sure we use our lovely sunscreen and face body lotion as well. But yeah, that's one of the things. So I guess leaning into that and showing that it's still something that I value and that I think Tracy follows it too. It's not too much of a hindrance into her day. But I think it's a combination of the way that the organization can run and a lot of the people who are drawn to that, still do value that relationship-based way of doing things.
Yeah, I can really relate to that. I think my experience of it is so I think when we make work meetings and processes efficient, like often there's a desire to conflate those with the human connection. And I think sometimes it's just good to give them their own space. So I worked on delivering registered Scrum Basics course with colleagues at Atlassian Learning and a contractor called Sponge in the UK. And our time zones just wouldn't mesh. And it ended up that we didn't actually need them to mesh for the work. We were fine working asynchronously, but it just got really lonely after a couple of weeks. And it was like I'd hand over things like at the end of my day to Becky in the US. She'd work on some things under the UK, and like things were humming. We were producing really lovely work, but I just missed having a chat with her and doing things. So we ended up just scheduling virtual coffee things, not to talk about the work, but just to do the human connection separately to the work chat, because that could keep going. And I feel like it'll be interesting to see how that becomes a norm with stuff around things, just to keep that cadence of connection going, because we still crave it as people, right? We need that regular human connection. I think that probably leads neatly into Christina's question, actually. So, and actually, I'll quote one of my favorite bits before I hand it over to Jonathan for his thoughts. There was a question for Christina around managing difficult conversations in an environment. And right of refusal, Christina, if you want to unmute after Jonathan gives his bit as well, always with things. Now, my favorite story on difficult conversations is always from coaching agile teams with Lisa Redkins, where she talks about a colleague who has body odor problems in the workplace and managing that discussion in an environment as well. But like, there's always difficult discussions to be had, regardless of what prompts them. And where you've got that strong people culture, you'd assume it makes it easier. I can imagine it makes it worse sometimes as well, like building those things. Yeah. What kind of difficult discussions do you have?
First of all, Christina, thanks for the question. It's a really good one. I saw it and I was like, oh, it's not an it's not an easy one to answer. And I think that you've kind of picked something up there, which is it can be more challenging. And I definitely have seen where people perhaps aren't as direct as they might in other places be. I can see the good of that. I can see the bad of it. I think that it can be really good in that people are a lot more considerate when they do have those conversations. I suppose when thinking about the question, I was thinking, there's got the kind of which, potentially awkward conversations where someone's wearing a really loud, flashy bit of clothing, which might not be appropriate. Maybe we could do it all in black. Might be a bit more, but we can
maybe on brand. I think for your organization.
Or if you were leaving your cutlery or your crockery out, or had a Coca-Cola at your desk. That's a very direct conversation, and it can be a bit awkward. But I suppose that the thing is with that, and what I'd probably say to a lot of the difficult conversations is be equipped with a pretty strong why, and why you're actually calling it out. And I think that using the analogy of the Coke can or the takeaway cup, it's kind of got a pretty strong why. And I suppose with some more difficult conversations you might have with people, it's having that strong why. And I suppose another element I'd add to it is just the idea of respect. I think that sometimes having difficult conversations actually shows that you have more respect for the people and for the work that you're all doing. And so, yeah, I guess I answered a few parts there. I feel like I jumped around a little bit, but did that kind of answer your question? Have you got anything follow up from that?
No, that's good. I guess I was just curious because sometimes you hear about these highly collaborative people first cultures, but then there's an avoidance of managing conflict or performance because you don't want to put that culture at risk. Or the other thing I've seen and heard is it's too collaborative, and sometimes decisions are delayed or not made because we're spending too much time collaborating to hear everybody's opinion. It's just good insight.
I think and bang on, Christina. And I think that it's honestly thinking about it, it's probably something to just keep an eye on. I think that if it's constantly going to be that culture and that style and way of doing things, it's something you have to keep a check on, because I just get the sense that it can kind of come back to what you've said about avoiding having difficult conversations, or sometimes wanting to make sure that everybody is on board before a decision is made. So there's definitely ways you get around it, but I think keeping an eye on it is totally, one thing that you got to do.
I think it actually links quite nicely to Josh's question that I see coming up next around like people from different backgrounds, whether it's cultural or in terms of the way your brain works. Full disclosure, I lead part of our mental health and neurodivergent kind of initiatives within our Atlassian partnership, so I have strong opinions on the kind of area. I think Christina's point around collaboration, I always find that what one person deems to be collaborative, some other people might find very isolating in the way you do things there. Like I've lost count of the number of meetings I've been in where like a senior person who likes to orate, like their definition of a collaborative meeting is them talking lots and some other people making notes around doing things. And I love things like Lego serious play, or to be honest with you, any kind of good facilitation, because I think good facilitation should get all of the brains in the room, and regardless of what they're bringing to the table, their backgrounds, their specialisms, you should find a way to get those inputs in. Sometimes that might not even be during the same meeting. You might need to work out a way to break the collaboration around there. But I love Josh's point. And so Josh has spoken about Eastern and Western cultures. I'll talk about Latvia in a second because I have some lovely things to add to what you said there. But like, how do you build a context where people who might be coming from very different positions can all contribute meaningfully? Have I summarized that okay, Josh? I see you engaged leaning in. Great. So yeah, like how do you create that single space around things? Is it just cookies, or is there something else we can do to bring things in?
Well, actually, that's it. It's all cookies. That's how we solve it. Cookies are the answer.
Yeah.
No, it's a good question. It's a really good question, and I guess for a multinational business, and Aesop does have a footprint and a presence across East West, and you do feel that, and I know that Tracy probably a lot more than me experiences that working across the different time zone and working across the different cultures. I think firstly just trying to understand how the different cultures might be, cater to those, be a bit more flexible, a bit more malleable. So be informed about the different cultures can definitely help. And I think that there's almost like a matrix structure I'm seeing here, where you've got the more like the culture of where people are living or where they're coming from, east of west, or a national culture. But then you've also got how people are, how they might think and how their brain might be working. And I think that when I was talking about hybrid working, and I suppose, your point around who, whether someone's more extroverted or introverted, I feel like people here might guess which one I might lean towards. But I think it is really important, again, to try to catch yourself when you can and be mindful of everyone being a little bit different. And absolutely what you're saying around the best kind of facilitation and coordination is to set up the environment and the space so that everyone can thrive individually and as a team. I talk about this hybrid working, and there are definitely people who prefer to do most of their work from home. And I know that when the pandemic came through and things started to open up, everyone was like, a lot of people were saying how great it was. And meanwhile, I personally, I find I can't do full remote working. It's actually not that, it kind of brings me down a little bit. But I think that you kind of need to do a bit of catering for everyone as much as you can, support the people and acknowledge the people who want to spend most of their time working at home, but then also support and acknowledge the people who do need a bit of interaction in person. And I suppose I love that I'm bringing it back to the hospitality and the food. No, I didn't mean to push this angle so firmly, but I think there was a few years back I was working with Optus, and I noticed that a lot of the socializing was alcohol based and going out and drinking in the evenings and stuff. And I could see that that's got its place, and there's certain people who really, enjoy that and feel comfortable in that. But there definitely were a lot of people who were not showing up, or if they did show up, they were uncomfortable. And it wasn't quite their place that they felt they could thrive. And so I remember I put on, and I think someone in the chat talked about it, similar to basically a potluck lunch, which is another very actionable idea. And I recommend everyone have a crack at it. Everyone brings a dish. And there were definitely the people who might not have felt so comfortable in the party drinking scene, loved the potluck scene. They would bring their food, you'd be able to try all different types of food, and it's a great thing people can be talking about as well.
Yeah, I think we need to lean into the fact that a lot of our corporate structures are just like the standard is go to the pub for a drink, right? And that just excludes a whole bunch of like really important voices from the way that you collaborate. So I really love in our Accenture Brisbane office, where Jonathan and I are physically this afternoon, like over the past 2 years, I've seen, and we still do, like go to the pub with things, but we've got a run club, we've got a games night, we do like painting, there's all sorts of like, and we're doing things like all going to go and see the Book of Mormon in July around things, which again, not for everyone, I appreciate, but you know, it's like a bit of theatre or something different. And I think my experience with it from working with a few different groups is like actually people always espouse this kind of like self-managing, self-emerging team thing, and I think that's great, but actually it takes quite a lot of facilitation to build that. And I remember talking to a colleague after we did a big Lego series play session, and his introductory statement was, "Hi, I'm an introvert," which I thought was an amazing way to introduce yourself. But
and especially the event.
Yeah, an event like it, and it had taken a lot from him emotionally and energy levels wise to be there and participate. But the thing that he expressed was that having a structure around the collaboration, rather than it be like, now you present and sticky notes and go and talk at people, really helped him bring things out. And so I think what I see when people go like, okay, we're going to workshop this now, is that's if you leave it unattended, then what you're doing is optimizing for the extrovert voices in the room. And whether it's because, like me, the people are neurodivergent, or they're just, that's not their game and their way to do things. I think if you build a structure where that's the only way that you build collaboration, then you're missing out those valuable voices as well. Josh, I'm going to end the statement around introversion by asking whether you want to unmute and say anything, but like, is there anything that you want to add?
I'm 100% extroverted. I think it's a very interesting take, right? Because I've got ADHD as well as culturally diverse, so I can be quite, I'd say it's a controlled chaos in my head anyway, how it comes across. But I've come across many other people that I've had to work with, and it's just understanding their needs, right? Spending a bit of time with each team member and really getting to know them on a personal level. I think you touched on the potluck. That's a really good one as well. Sharing people's cultures, they're more open to speak about their own background and getting to know them again on that personal level. It really helps. So more valid.
Yeah, it's a funny one though, because I feel my own privilege, right? So like so there are some areas where like I'm in a minority, I'm neurodivergent, I had bipolar dyslexic character. There are other areas where I'm massively privileged, right? I'm a cisgender white guy from a country that's colonized most of the world and done things. And so when I'm happy to talk about those aspects of me, that comes from a position of privilege as well, right? But I do find it interesting when you are willing to give a bit of that, like Josh is willing to talk about his ADHD. I find if you can build an environment where it's okay to say those kind of things, it just equips everyone better. And I remember when I just started supporting this mental health community that we're building in Accenture ANZ for Christmas, that I said to the leads, look, I'm not a completer finisher. I'll do the jazz hands things and get people activated. If you want the follow through, not me, around things, are you okay with that? Because like, if you buy into that, we're going to have a good time. If you think I'm going to be this unicorn follow up, that's a different brain type to mine that you want to recruit with things. And I feel like it's really important that we build those kind of environments where like people like Josh and I, who we on that end of the spectrum, can go and find people who love to dive into the thoroughness and do the things there and build a team that has both of those aspects in it. Love the question, Josh. Okay.
Yeah, great, Josh. Thanks for that.
We've only got a few minutes left, so if you've got like a burning question, please jump in. Melody, I see you made a point rather than a question, but I'd love if you want to add anything to it based on your reflection around things.
I think it's where I was talking about not just are we not accommodating, that's the wrong word. We're including everybody that we want to include. We also need to manage ourselves. I'm remote, extrovert, remote, and I'm worse in person. And
worse personality, we can decrease differ.
Stronger extrovert.
But for a person that is light sensitive and introverted, I have a bestie in a building, and we all know this building in Brisbane that has a really beautiful ceiling that mimics koi ponds and blossoms and etc. This poor fellow gets to work before they turn it on. He books himself a pod. He tries not to eat or drink so he doesn't have to leave his pod, and he leaves after the lights off. Now, can you imagine him and I and my bestie, who were like, hey, and she's just as bright as I am, and we're both loud. And by the way, I was his coach, great match. We worked it out. But can you imagine him seeing us in the lobby, and we're heading for the same lift? And because I was his coach and understood him, I could grab my bestie and go, hey, let's go get a coffee, and turn her around and head towards somewhere else, because he would literally just go white and start shaking at the thought, right? That's us managing ourselves. And I think it's really important that we put that thought into play as well. And also never share a facilitation room with Kit when he's blowing up flamingos.
Write that down.
That's a life lesson. Yeah. Do food and never share place. Yeah.
But that I did this talk about distracted personalities, different personalities, etc. with Kit. But what I was going to say about that, Kit, was I was having a crisis that day. My daughter had dropped the dongle of my laptop, remember, in coffee on my way out the door. So it wasn't working anymore. And I was doing a presentation and nothing was working. And Kit jumped in and said, I'm after you, and that we're in between. If you don't close the doors, I'll help you. I will let you connect to my laptop. And we emailed through various firewalls to get my Prezzo to his laptop, and off we went, right? So I think we don't understand that our community is bigger than ourselves sometimes, and that we can reach out to other people outside of our organizations for thoughts and ideas.
Love that. Yep.
Yeah. One more question. Sam's brought it back to the Atlassian community, which is good. You've got to have some people to keep us honest. So before we lose, and if you have to drop off, don't worry, we'll publish this all to our YouTube channel, so you'll at the end of things. But I think you did hint at this, Jonathan, but in terms of like a bunch of people were here from an Atlassian community perspective with things. You're an Atlassian user, like any specific tips on like ways that you've seen, especially during Confluence? Although I'd love to add something on Loom afterwards for some people as well. Like any specifics that you can share with people that you've seen work well for building that kind of collaboration using the tools. So we've got the physical instantiation of it, but I'm going to guess that you're building an instantiation of that within your software as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose that everybody's using Jira Atlassian in different ways. I think it's the teams will have their own projects. Then we've got this consolidated project which pulls everything in together, and you'll have the timeline view. That's really helpful, I think, to get a kind of a holistic, consolidated view of everything going on. I think it's really helpful for supporting that hybrid ways of working, because then you got people dialing in, you can put it up on the board, you can put it up on the call, and everyone's kind of looking at the same thing and working towards the same picture. Confluence is also extensively used as well. Amazing for documentation, sharing, knowledge sharing, etc. But I'm not sure. Yeah, I feel like you've got some more bells and whistles that you could be talking.
Well, I think it is each to their own is the main thing. And when I've spoken with you about the way that you've used it with teams previously, I think if you're still using tools in a way where it's like, we're going to make you work in a way that only makes sense for this other person who wants to see your thing, then we're missing the trick. And I think what we're seeing more and more, and how I heard you speak about it, and also when we think of things like Rovo or connecting stuff via MCP connections, it's about going, okay, so there's a core of like data truth in the middle here, which is recording how we're working. If you want to interact with that one way, and I want to interact with it a different way, that's cool, as long as we build like a way that we're encoding things together, so that like you're talking in pictures, I'm talking in words, and another person comes in wanting to talk in maths. Like if we're doing it smart, then we're building a system where all of those things can be true. And I feel like that relates to like how you're building that strong culture. Yeah, that's my favorite.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And actually, we've lost Josh, unfortunately, with things. But one of the bits I remember, I've been discussing this with Brian Guffey, who's one of the Atlassian champions in LA, and we were talking about the value of Loom. And I think what's really interesting that we're seeing as a transition point is that ability for something to be produced in one medium, like recording us talking now, and like when someone else comes back to this later, they might not want to watch the 45-minute recording. They might want to interact via that with like text or a summary or a chatbot or a whiteboard or a kind of like or a single pane infographic. And I think what's really exciting is we're getting to the point now where that's trivial to do with things. Like I can go to Notebook LLM, feed in this discussion and generate an infographic. And when Melody shares that with her Women in Agile community next week, she can share the picture. She doesn't have to share and say, listen back to 45 minutes. And I think that's really exciting and empowering in a way that we didn't have the technology to do. And forming like a system of work, well, that's encoded in the middle where you've got that thing that you come back to. And it doesn't matter if you made the note now, because it's in there. I think that's an exciting kind of way to do it. So that'd be my takeaway.
I suppose, like, just quickly building on that, when I was preparing and thinking about this session, I was thinking, got to weave AI in there somewhere. Like,
it's 2026, right? You got to say AI at least 4 times.
It's going to get the clicks. It's going to get the engagement, but also, you know, it genuinely is something that's coming through in a big way, and it's going to continue to come through. And when I was talking about the things that, you know, I thought were important, and the things that tooling helps as a foundation for us to do, which is once we've kind of got this alignment and structure, then we can have that kind of high level discussion and high level alignment and coordination. And I see the different AI tools and features enhancing that. And like you're talking about there, you know, making some of that more admin-y stuff quicker. There's a lot more powerful, a lot more features, and it can kind of then just enable those discussions even more.
Yeah. And Christy's been to answer us a nice question. So I didn't invite Jonathan on this because he would talk about how awesome Rovo was. Things I invited him because delivery things. But I'm really interested, like whether you've seen Rovo or any automation in the tools make a difference within this world of things, or like a lot of people and organizations, are you still quite early in that journey?
It's a good one. I think I'd probably say earlier. Definitely been using it. Yeah, I suppose for people who are using it for user story writing, you know, drafting up roadmaps, different options and things like that. But I think the interesting thing is it is still early-ish days for the adoption. I think I'd really like for us all to be leaning into it a bit more. I suppose one of the challenges that I see is, again, in that delivery space, people are focused on getting the things done. It's hard. The way I keep talking about it is you're on the train, but you're putting the track in front of you as you go. And so you kind of have to be building these things while you're also delivering the work. So there is the challenge there. So yeah, I suppose to answer your question, it's early days and it's very much playing around. And I think one of my approach to this whole AI biz is people are saying, you know, so I can see some people talking about all the cat videos being created and the different websites, you know, Maltbook, etc., and whether they're not quite valid. But I think it's so important that we all experiment and play and just start using it. And that's where I guess that I'd say that we're at the moment. And then good things will kind of come from that.
Yeah, I think it's a great point to leave it on with things. And like, yeah, I think organizations who can't experiment are going to have a difficult, or they're already having a difficult time. But the ones who can experiment, even if you're early, that's a good base. Cool. I want to be respectful of people's time, even though we've run on, so we've already disrespected your time. But thank you so much to everyone joining. It's lovely to see some new and some familiar, not old faces joining with things as well. Thank you for all your questions as well. Anyone extra who has things after we bid farewell will hang around and answer it too. Just a final acknowledgement that so if anyone who's not aware, it's been a difficult time in the Atlassian community in the last week. So we face into that. Like I am still a huge fan of the people and the products that we're talking about here. If you are recruiting or able to talk to any of our Atlassian friends at the moment, there is a whole bundle of amazing people out there looking for roles in the last few days. So have a look on LinkedIn. Happy to connect to any of you as well. But just to pay tribute to those awesome people, I know that I've had like 5 discussions in the last 3 days already. So if you're looking for new colleagues, now is an excellent time to find talented people around things as well before we wrap things well. Okay, thank you all so much. Melody's got a job seeker thing. Look at all these lovely things being shared as well.
I think just in true Aesop form as well, I've got a little something for you.
Oh, look at that. There you go. My wife will be able to stock the bathroom with her preferred things.
Thank you for having me. Been a
Thank you,
pleasure.
Jonathan.
Thank you everyone for joining. It's been unreal. I really appreciate the questions, and I hope that it's been an interesting discussion as well.
Very good. I'll get you some Accenture swag before you leave.
Brilliant.
I've got socks for him.
Robo.
I'm not wearing them, so I can't show you. There you go. And thanks everyone. If you'd like to join us for a future episode, we would love more people to host like Jonathan. So if you've got stories to share, things to do, we always love ideas. So get in touch as well. And thank you for joining us. There we go.
Thanks all.
There you go. If Anton doesn't leave, we can answer his question about JSM as well. Do you use JSM?
Service manager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go, Anton. Yes. Answer your question.
Nice answer. Short questions, but perfect answer.
I literally, Sorry, that was to kill. I was like, yes, we do. Yeah, we do. The service management team use it. I think to great effect. I think it works really well. Do you have any particular questions about it?
No, because I just checked your website and there was no any kind of fancy portal as we used to have in GSM. But I just assume you use a
He'll raise a bug. He'll raise a bug for it later.
So interesting. Jira Service Management is internal tech support.
Okay.
External, it was Zendesk, and I think it might be shifting a little bit now as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just interesting if you have a connection with them. So, for example, like contact us, it goes through to your Jira like through JSM.
Yep.
Have you had an opportunity to play with CSM yet, Anton? The new Yossi thing. I think
so.
really into that space, right? Yeah. Early on the maturity there.
Bye.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you for the question, Anton.
Yeah,
Thank you to everyone
Anton.
hanging around. I will cut the recording now.